Today we're going to answer the question, did our educational experience impact our decision to homeschool? I mean, kind of did, kind of not.
Yes and no.
We grew up very differently. I went to public school.
I went to private school.
Yeah, we just had very different experiences, even into college. So some of it did have an impact on it, some of it did play a role in our decision to homeschool, but not as much as you might think. In case you're seeing us for the first time, hi, I'm Chelsea.
I'm Logan.
And we are the Hollies, and this is Homeschool After Hours, where we talk about all things family, marriage, business, life, everything that happens after the homeschool hours. Last week, we answered the question, what made us choose to homeschool? So if you haven't yet seen that, go watch that video. And then don't forget to like and subscribe. That was so dumb.
You put a little like thing right there.
Okay.
How cool would that be?
Okay, I can do that for you.
Thanks.
Okay. So like I said, I went to public school my whole life. And to be completely honest, I never really thought that it was a bad thing. So obviously there are things with public school that I didn't like bullying and the all day at school and just normal teenage things that, they shouldn't really be normalized. So I'm just putting that out there. But I didn't look back and think my experience was bad. In fact, going through college to become a teacher, I imagined that I would teach at a public school and my kids would go to public school. I think the biggest thing that factored into it was when I moved to Florida and saw what public schools in our area was like. And that's what really made my decision. So not really my own public school experience, but the experience of being in the public school system here was what kind of impacted it more than my own education.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think is a big factor of that? Why Florida is so much different than where you grew up?
Yeah, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and in Pennsylvania, we don't have school choice. In Florida, you have school choice. So you can choose where you go to school within your county. And it just really impacts the schools when you can choose to go, especially in our county. We live in a massive county with over 100 schools. And so I can live in one part and choose to go to a school an hour away in the same county. It just really impacts the school, the environment, all of those things. And it makes the public school system not super great.
And I went to private school, so I didn't have that experience. I didn't have the public school system. I wasn't even thinking about it. And looking back on it, I don't think there was any part of that kind of swayed me one way or the other into homeschooling at all. And I went to a college prep school, and I don't feel like I was college prepped. I felt like after I graduated, I learned that there was vocational schools and there were other avenues and other educational things that I could have done that honestly I probably wouldn't have even attempted college for the first 2 years and then drop out. I feel like I wasted a lot of that time, so I felt like I had a lot of knowledge after I graduated. And after I graduated is really when it impacted me of there's so many other options and so many other avenues for learning life lessons, vocational and things like that that I think my kids could benefit from, and that's kind of what pushed me more towards a homeschool decision.
I think it's interesting you said that because I went to public school where obviously in that era it was you go to college or you're working at McDonald's, like you weren't doing anything. However, my public school had VOTech and you could go do extra classes off campus, you could learn trades, you could learn skills. I did something called Open Campus, and so I was able to go into a hospital and shadow nurses, which made me really quickly realize that I didn't want to actually go into the medical field, which is what I had planned to go to college for. And so when I realized that, then I started shadowing a teacher within our building who, at the time it was IU13, I don't know if it's still called IU13, but it was special ed. And so I shadowed a special ed teacher and realized I love this. And I think that's something that your private school didn't offer. I think they're starting to a little bit now because they are realizing that not every person wants to go to college or has that experience. And so I think they're starting to do those things. But when you were there, and even when I was teaching there, it was college. It was 100% of our students are accepted into their college of choice.
Yeah, it was go, get the grade, put the pretty face on, graduate, and then good luck.
Yeah.
There was nothing, I don't think they prepped us at all, which is, I think the public school system here does have some options like that a lot, because even when my dad graduated from Cyprus, his whole senior year was like working. So
yeah,
I do remember he's talked about that numerous times with me.
Yeah, so that is one of the biggest differences.
Hands-on trade stuff. And
it's one of the biggest differences between public and private school. I don't think public school is great always, but I do think that they have a lot more opportunities in that aspect. I think private school pretty much is a feeder for colleges, and that's kind of how it's viewed. So I do think
growing up in private school, I always was taught and felt like I was taught that it was college or nothing. Like get to college, get a degree, and then you'll be doing great.
I think that's our generation in general. Like our parents didn't go to college, so it was like this big push. You have to go to college to do anything with your life. And now here we are at 30 realizing, well, did I actually need to do that? And you put us on this track and we can't do the things in life that you said we would be able to do.
Yeah.
Like it's so hard to buy a house. It's hard to pay for groceries every month. Like life is just hard. And everybody said, if you go to college, it's going to be easy. You're going to make all this money and it's going to be fantastic, right?
Well, I mean, You have a lot of debt for, potential
Exactly.
$30,000 paying job.
Exactly.
In Florida, so.
But people don't talk about that.
No.
Yeah.
No. It's funny. You're overeducated and overdebted.
Yeah.
And I am no debt and very not educated.
Yeah. Which, okay, let's talk about that. I did go to college. I have a bachelor's degree in special education, elementary education. I have a master's degree in school administration. I don't feel like my undergrad experience, like my teacher training, swayed me either way of public school, private school, or homeschool. It was my master's degree. I got my master's in school administration, and then that's when I learned the ugly side of the school system, why it was created, how it's run, why it's run the way it was, and how different stakeholders play a role in different parts of education, and who writes the curriculum, and all of those things, how it's funded. That was the thing that I was like, okay, I don't agree with any of this. I have now spent 7 years of my life going to college to become a teacher, to become a principal, and now it's a system that I don't want to be a part of. And that is the thing that impacted my decision to homeschool the most versus my experience in the school system.
Yeah. And that's why I think after I graduated, that's when that area of my life, that era, would be what influenced, looking back, it influenced my current situation of wanting to homeschool. Realizing that, like, I have a contractor's license and a real estate license, and like things that you can earn through actual real life applications of diving into the workforce, being thrown into it, and learning your trade and becoming good at your trade is much more valuable to me than sitting in the classroom learning about it, reading about it from a book. So that viewpoint of mine that I've always had has really impacted the homeschool decision for sure.
I think it's going to be interesting to see what our kids choose to do, because we have two very different backgrounds and educational experiences. Like I said, I went to college. You're a college dropout.
That was so mean.
Sorry. I was making $30,000 with 7 years of experience, couldn't pay back my student loans, and you don't have student loans and make way more than I ever could with my college degrees.
Yeah.
So our kids are seeing two very different experiences, and it's going to be hard, I think, to convince them to go to college unless it's something they absolutely had to do, because they're seeing me now work a side job to pay for my student loans so I can be able to stay home and homeschool them, and they see you be very successful in all that you do without a college degree. So
that swayed me. Like, both my parents have no college degree. They were successful in their fields. Not that it was easy. I know that. It was difficult, ups and downs, but it's possible to be influential and successful in a field and not have, some MBA in business or something. So definitely swayed me. So I'm very interested to see in the future, because they have two different parents. That's two totally different backgrounds.
What would you hope that they do?
Whatever brings them joy, honestly.
So if that was go to college and you paid for it, you do it?
So be it.
Okay.
So be it.
You heard it here. Who's paying for their colleges? So anyway, did our educational experiences impact our decision to homeschool? Yes, no, kinda. It was more the life experiences that impacted us to homeschool, really. If you have questions for us, leave them in the comments, because we will be answering them in later videos. Next week, we're going to be answering Kayla's question: do I have any advice for people wanting to homeschool without experience in education?
That's going to be a good one.
It is going to be a good one.
Yeah. And we've got a lot of comments to get my parents involved and get their viewpoint of when we started homeschooling from our last video. So we're working on that. Not next week. We've already got next week covered, but coming soon. So stay tuned for that interview. That'll be fun.
It's going to be completely unhinged, so you will not want to miss it. So make sure you are subscribed so that way you don't miss that conversation.